America may go along with Israel into a dirty tactical and nuclear bomb to end this war on Iran, and they will use it. The war by itself is a violation of all norms in the whole world. So therefore, we know that the Americans have been dragged in this war. It wasn't American war. It was a war imposed on the American people by Prime Minister of Israel. Those who followed West Asia should see Iraq as an example. 2003, when I was embedded with the American troops when they invaded Iraq, what was the massive deception, weapon of mass deception they used to fool us that it was the nuclear issue, while we all knew it was never been the oil, it was never been the nuclear issue, it was Iraq oil. And until date, I can tell you, Aayesha, not a single Iraqi get his salary before the approval of the American treasury. Everything is sold by dollars, despite the fact they tell you publicly that we are out of Iraq. You know, in the corridor of power where decisions of war and peace are being decided, there's a dangerous fusion nobody is talking about in this place. There's an ancient religion-related narratives that they are being weaponized to justify modern strategic ambition. It's very difficult to argue with people who think that they have the divine forces, the divine authority to justify territorial conquest and regional domination. American president, they have been projecting him as the prophet. The Arab lacking the will of having a united stand or a collective stand to defend themselves or protect themselves whenever there is a war happening. It is just because the bullying of the United States and the spoiled child, the brat, Netanyahu, continue with his savage attack on them. This man who has been hunted by Epstein, who has been hunted by being a lunatic, he is still in power and still can dictate terms in this part of the world. Tomorrow they remove Iran. Who will be the next devil or demonizing country that they can use so the Arab country keep pouring money in the American treasure?
Hello and a very warm welcome to all. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aayesha Varma. The Middle East is at the center of a raging war and has been since February 28th, ever since America and Israel launched a joint operation that ended up in the death of Iran's supreme leader, Khamenei. We have Dr. Waiel Awwad, a West Asia strategist and senior journalist, joining us to give us more insight into what's taken place since then. Mr. Awwad, thank you so much for speaking with us. A lot has changed since we last spoke.
Thank you for having me. First of all, let me thank you and the Hindustan Times and your viewers who have been so kind of commenting on the previous program. That's what encouraged me, that there are people in this world who understand the real politics of the development in the region. And having said that, I would say there were the trends that this war was imminent and the Americans have piled all these weapons. And Netanyahu made 7 visits, Prime Minister of Israel, to the White House and met with President Trump, and he was able to convince him, whether it was the true Trumpistan or Mullah Trump, we don't know, but he convinced him of making these things happen, and this war took place immediately. Even though there was a discussion in Geneva between the American and the Iranian officials with the Omani's mediators, we saw that there was a progress. Even the Omani foreign minister came on the air. But then the next day we saw that the American took this level of aggression, which violate all international norm of diplomacy, principle of a good faith, or any which constitute a cornerstone of international law and civilization. It has nothing to do with the personal anti-American, anti-Israeli. The war by itself is a violation of all norms in the whole world. So therefore, we know that the Americans have been dragged in this war. It wasn't American war because the meeting in the White House, the Congress, the American debating, there was no imminent threat for the American citizen. There was no imminent from a ballistic missile. Iran never been close to making a nuclear bomb. So why the United States has to go for this war? Despite all the fact, all the reason and pretext given by the President Trump, it was a war imposed on the American people by Prime Minister of Israel.
You know, Iran now has a new supreme leader. It's a big development. It's the son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Mojtaba Khamenei. What is your take? Do you think Iranians will accept this? Because earlier there were chants calling for the death of Khamenei. Now there are also chants that have been heard calling for the death of Mojtaba.
Well, there are small sections within the society in any opposition. There are the demanding of new supreme leader. That's a normal. But if you look at the majority of the people who came into the street, pouring into the street after the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, and we have seen that how many people were in favor of revenge against the United States and in favor of bringing Mojtaba into the supreme leadership. Here, I would say that even before his assassination, Ayatollah Khamenei, he have already made the three choices of his replacement, but he never had his son on the card. But being an Asian, I would understand the sentiment and the sympathy waves that really attack, whether it was in India during the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi, or whether it is in Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, or whether it is in Najibur Rahman in Bangladesh. Everybody feels that the successor should be the right son, though it's not a dynasty to replace a supreme leader. Having said that, I would say that putting him on power right now is a very good development for the Iranian people. He will not succumb or compromise for any kind of a surrender that the United States and Israel think that he might do. He will continue with the same policy. He told them, his father and the president of Iran, that you started this war, we will end it in our own terms.
Speaking of power, energy markets are on the edge, oil prices are skyrocketing, and because of this, the world's biggest choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, has essentially been closed by Iran. Can you explain why this is so significant and what options other nations, such as China and South Korea, have? Because we know that the majority of the oil that comes from there is supplied to Asia.
Very good question. I believe United States is fighting two war fronts here. One is the global dominance, where they are fighting the superpower like China, India, Russia, South Korea, Japan, because these are the countries which rely more on the, except parting Russia, rest of the countries are importing 60% of their requirement of energy from this part of the world, and the Strait of Hormuz is the center of a trade of 20% of the global trade and oil, and also in the normal trade. So therefore, if they close it, if they create havoc in this region, it will take the minimum of 3 years to clear the mining. So demining will take 3 years. So all these countries' economic development, economic prosperity will be affected and impacted by the American imposing their own blackmailing, that because they have controlled the oil of Venezuela, they are controlling now the oil, if it happened, of Iran, and they will be also going to Algeria, and they will go to Nigeria and Greenland. So therefore, this is the global war that US is making to control not only the energy supply, but also the corridors of these energy supply globally. The second one, as we know, that it is a supreme, to ensure that Israel is a supreme dominant force in the region. So therefore, the impact will be in the region. It is far more than the American anticipated, especially when Iran start attacking the neighboring countries where all the American military bases are stationed there. And we have seen cutting of the LNG, cutting of the oil supply in Aramco and in Qatar. All this have had a great impact on the upsurging of the prices of the oil, and also of the Dow Jones, and all the equity markets are falling down. So this America cannot afford, and that's why President Trump now facing a dilemma. What is actually the objective of this war? I mean, is it the objective of this war seriously? Was it to remove Iranian nuclear? Then why you were saying it is a nuclear discussion was positive? Then if it is regime change, why you are killing civilian and you killing innocent people? Upholding democracy, why you first of all intervene in 1953 to Tabal Mossadegh, who was an elected government, a prime minister. And now because Iran oil and gas are being sold not by US dollars, you are dictating, you want to control, to sell it. And I believe those who followed West Asia should see Iraq as an example. 2003, when I was embedded with the American troops, when they invaded Iraq, what was the massive deception, weapon of mass deception they used to fool us that it was the nuclear issue, while we all knew it was never been the oil, it was never been the nuclear issue, it was Iraq oil. And until date, I can tell you, Aayesha, not a single Iraqi get his salary before the approval of the American treasury. Everything is sold by dollars, despite the fact they tell you publicly that we are out of Iraq.
You know, there is an elected government in Iran, which is headed by Masoud Pezeshkian. Do you think that the elected government is playing any role in the response to the US aggression, or is the IRGC calling the shots?
See, this is a wartime, and United States and Israel attacked top leaders of the government, and most of the government, even defense forces, even in the IRG, even the close leader to Ayatollah Khamenei, they've been lost their life. That's why now decentralize their leadership in the country. This is a wartime. The government can devote the domestic issue for the public, and they can ensure that food supply, safety, securing their safety and the treatment from the killing. I'm getting messages from Iran. I know families there related to us who are already sleeping in the bathroom because of the civilian has been targeted all over Iran. By the way, it's nothing to do with the military. I mean, this number of killing of Iranian civilian give you a clear indication that this kind of horror is being imposed on the Iranian. So therefore, I don't see any government will be in a position to deal with the military side unless they leave it to the army and to the Republican Guard. And I think the Republican Guard and the army and the political leadership choose the supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. I think the supreme leader, he is also the final call is for him. That is where the structure of the defending the country is the top priority for those agencies, while domestically should be run by the government.
Why do you think we're seeing attacks on the Gulf, though? Because beyond U.S. military bases and embassies being targeted, we're seeing attacks take place in Kuwait, Dubai, Bahrain, etc. All of them are facing the brunt of a war that they did not start. What is happening?
That is exactly what happened before the war. In fact, the Iranians sent their envoys to all the Arab states and informed them that any firing, any rocket comes from any American bases in this country, it is a legitimate target for the Iranian, and they will attack. So there was some attack which carried out from this country into Iran, as per the Iranian have been saying. So therefore, they have retaliated and attacked. And in war, by the way, nobody can predict anything. You are firing at Iran from thousands of miles, from the warship, ballistic missile, from your B-52 bomber, B-53, F-53, you're bombing from F-16. You are far away from their radar to retaliate against you, right? So you will go only to the military bases where American interest is there. So American interest is in this region. They have 50 to 60,000 American Marines stationed in this part of the world. So when they started this war, the first thing they did, they destroyed the infrastructure of the military establishment of the United States in these bases, especially the anti-missile radars and all, which was coordinating with the Israeli one to attack or counter the Iranian attack rockets. So I think they felt the heat. And second part is a part of also strategy of the Iranian of the war, by the way. Now they are attacking these countries. First of all, it was an international outcry because the international community felt this is no more, not a regional war. This is not Russia and Ukraine. This is a war involving the whole world, and the economy is at risk, including the financial system of the world is at risk. So therefore, there was a response that we should put an end to this war. This is one of the issues. The second issue, which the United States also realized, and Iranian realized, that if the American troops trying to move in, even the warships comes closer to the Strait of Hormuz, Iranian, they will be within their range. So that is also another way that they cannot have supply of their warship from the area they destroyed, which is they can survive 7 days only with these warships, with the fuel they are having with them. So I think militarily, if you ask any military person, he will give you overview in these issues, which is related. That's why we've been asking military personnel about their point of view on those regard. This is how the strategy is being structured and orchestrated, because Iran is facing a tremendous war by the American and the Israelis. The amount of weapon they are throwing, more than 2,000 bombs they have already launched in them. They destroyed lots of infrastructure. They attacked stadium, they attacked school, they killed civilians, they killed girls between 10 to 12, 160 girls, they killed 200 people in the stadium. What the hell is going on? So Iran, it has to make sure it's the survival, it's an extensional war with the United States. And they have been preparing for this ground. Even there are reports which saying that American forces tried to make, a kind of commandos on Iraq with the Israelis, and they captured American soldiers. I don't know how far is this stories, but I think the coming days it will be exposed and showing to the rest of the world that you cannot attack or destabilize the regime or bringing the regime down if you don't put boot on the ground. So I think the Iranians are ready. They are preparing. But if this is dragging the Gulf country into the war, and that is exactly what the American objective, by the way, is to bring the Gulf country in this war for two reasons. A, they will turn it ultimatum into a Sunni Shia fight. B, they have to pay the bill. America does not have the money to pay the bill. Taxpayer in the United States, they will not pay this bill. Who is going to pay the billions of dollars for the American companies who are now manufacturing more weapons to be used, except what they have done in Afghanistan? They took from all the world, from Australia to Vietnam to Japan. They collected money from all over the world. Similar thing they did the invasion of Iraq of the will of the coalition of the willing. They immediately collected money from all this world, and then they looted the Iraqi gold and oil, and they siphoned it to pay the bills. So therefore, American, for them, it's a business as usual. For the Arab country told them, no, we are not ready to involve in this war. If you had the military bases for years, ever since the Second Gulf War, why didn't you protect us? Neither during Israel attacking Qatar, nor at this time of the Iranian attacking us. Then what these military bases have been doing all these years, except that the spying on Iran?
Since you did speak about the incident that took place at that school in southern Iran, the elementary school, that horrific tragedy, let's get back to that, because there are recent reports in American media which are now saying that the US military was actually responsible. What do you think about this entire shifting of blame and what the ripple effects of this will be?
Actually, this is the problem with the American media and the current government. In the corridor of power where decisions of war and peace are being decided, there's a dangerous fusion nobody is talking about in this. There's an ancient religion-related narratives that they are being weaponized to justify modern strategic ambition. Exactly, this the international is being subordinated to claim that divine mandate of technical pretext. From uranium enrichment to terrorism to self-respect, to cover up the objective that this war has been taking place. So I think it's very difficult to argue with people who think that they have the divine forces, the divine authority to justify territorial conquest and regional domination. American president, they have been projecting him as the prophet, as the Easter in the old biblical. And Netanyahu is saying it is a great Israel from Euphrates to Nile. This is written in our biblical, and the American ambassador in Israel saying that there's legitimate right to expand and occupy all these territories from Sinai Peninsula to Euphrates, including Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Sinai Peninsula, 1/3 of Saudi Arabia. That is what the greater Israel. If we are going to speak on this line, it's very difficult even to argue or have a dialogue with country which does not believe that this war is illegitimate, it is violating all international norms, and you should put an end to it.
How do you think Iran's actions have changed its alliances in the Middle East itself?
Well, it has a tremendous change. In fact, the people perceptions have already been against this war. They have already, though there are sentiment among the Arab countries, even among the Gulf country, that Iran have gone beyond its mandate, attacking sovereign nations and all. It's not merely a military basis that they have been attacking. It's also they're attacking hotels, they're attacking malls, they're attacking places where the Americans, the Marines and personnel of Israel and American are stationed. So they have been tracking them and following them. But that does not give you the legitimacy also to attack a sovereign nations, no matter what. If it was limited to military base, limited to the military bases, that is understood. But still, you are violating international law. If we wanted to go by international law, Geneva Convention, international law, that and nobody should have any kind, the Protocol 1977, which was also been put for the amendment of the Fourth Geneva Convention. It is designed to protect civilians at all time. This is the international law. So even now we are finding civilians being killed, not only in Iran, but also in the Arab country. So this ramification is quite bad for the region. And I think unless and until big powers come on the table and discuss how to put an end of this war, the situation will get more aggravated, more worse than what is happening right now. And imagine what will be the impact on a countries where their expats have been living there for years, like India, where they have 10 million Indians living in that part of the world, if the war spread into those regions.
But in line with this, if we talk about the Middle East itself, the Arab League held a meet, which was chaired by the UAE. At that meeting, Egypt had raised the idea of, once again revived the idea rather, of a NATO-like alliance, which would be the Arab force. What's your take on this?
Well, we have been discussing this for years, for decades with the Arab world. Whenever we go for a think tank and decide about the security framework arrangement in the Arab world. In fact, after the Gulf War, first Gulf War, Iran-Iraq war, and we know that who pushed Saddam Hussein onto 8 years of war with Iran, and with the support of all the Arab country, including the funding and paying all the bills, plus the American and the European who have given Saddam Hussein all the site of the Iranian attack, including the nuclear and the chemical, and they did it. All right. So now the second part, when they fooled Saddam Hussein and went into by the American ambassador or chargé d'affaires into Iraq, I've met with Saddam Hussein and told him we have nothing to do between the rift between you and Kuwait. And next day, Saddam Hussein sent his troops and invaded Kuwait. So that security vacuum created by the United States for two reasons. Because the United States wanted to have established a military bases in the region, and they feel that they're custodian of the GCC country. So when you speak of any Arab security framework, everybody said, oh, we trust the United States. They are okay with us. They made the military bases. All these military bases have been stationed there to protect us. They're paying it. They paid for the infrastructure, for the maintenance, for the staff, for even the swimming pool money they pay for the American troops. Okay. So everything is being paid on condition, provided that the American provide them security and protection, which never happened, neither in the Israeli attack nor in this attack. I think these are the issues where we have to see the Arab lacking the will of having a united stand or a collective stand to defend themselves or protect themselves whenever there is a war happen. What happened in Syria, what happened in Libya, what happened in Iraq, there was a division within the Arab community, within the Arab leaderships, who was supposed to who legitimized the killing, who did not legitimize the killing. Leave alone what happened in Gaza Strip. They couldn't bring a bottle of water into the Gaza, despite all the pressure they applied on the American and on the international community. It is just because the bullying of the United States and the spoiled child, the brat, Netanyahu, continue with his savage attack on them.
Now, speaking of, America's losses have been pegged at over $2 billion since the start of the war. And while America has a budget in the billions for warfare, how long do you think Israel and Iran can last?
Well, Israel doesn't have a problem. Most of the Israelis have been getting $10 billion annually from the United States. And in fact, during Gaza, it reached to $18 billion. So they have no problem of extracting money from the taxpayer of the United States. And that's why people in the United States actually raising their voice. Why should we continue to pay the Israeli lobby who sent back some of the money to buy the senators in the United States and make sure that none of the senators of the Congress stand any time or any president against Israel. So Israel have no problem in extracting as much as possible money from the United States and as much as ammunition. And even President Trump himself said it the other day in the Knesset. He was very proud of Netanyahu that he is telling him to develop very sophisticated bomb, and he used it very well. He killed 69,500 or 74,000 people, including 50,000 women and children, 20,000 still buried under the debris. And this man, who has been hunted by Epstein, who has been hunted by being a lunatic, he is still in power and still can dictate terms in this part of the world and create havoc and chaotic situation. I don't know what century are we living in.
You know, back to Mojtaba. He's lost his father, his mother, and his wife. Now he's the supreme leader. Do you think that this war can turn nuclear? Because there has been speculation that it could, considering the quakes that are being reported in both Iran and the United States.
I don't think so. You see, the supreme leader, his father have issued a fatwa. Even then, there was no Khomeini time that we will not go nuclear at all. They always feel that it is haram, it should not be there. The nuclear is not even a deterrence forces. It's used as a regular in the traditional war. It's just a deterrence. So therefore, to have a nuclear, maybe it is in their mindset, but I don't think they are. You see, because there are two enemies for Iran in this part of the world. One is Israel, which is already bombarding and killing covert operation for more than 2 decades. We have seen how many killing of the scientists and the infrastructure sabotaged by Israeli agents inside Iran. And the second part, which is the American. So the Americans are far, far away. They will never, the American create a war anywhere in the world. They are very safe because they are far away from the battleground. They create havoc. They call in regional parties, come and settle it down. And then what they do, manage the crisis. Israel, the same. So why Iran has to go for a nuclear when they can hit the Daimuna nuclear site of Israel, of a nuclear state, undeclared nuclear state by the rest of the world? I mean, look at the hypocrisy of this world. And an undeclared nuclear state, Israel, having more than 100 nuclear heads, with the United States a nuclear state, attacking a country which may be thinking of having a nuclear, right? And then you attacking them illegal. And secondly, what did you do for Iraq? What did you do for Libya? The same thing they have done for Iraq and Libya. They first exposed, they have checked everything. They knew they had no weapon of mass destruction, yet they invaded and they killed both the leaders. So Iran knew that this is going to happen to them. Why nobody asked why the American doesn't attack North Korea. North Korea declared the nuclear state. Why they're attacking? Because North Korea doesn't have oil and gas, and it's not of a geopolitical importance for the United States. Okay? So where is gas? Where is natural resources? US will find for you a reason to use it, whether it's a tool of divine spirit or it is a terrorism. It's a tool to achieve political object.
So is Mojtaba the real leader in Iran, or is he going to be remote controlled by the powerful IRGC?
No, I think he is the leader in the country. He was very soft. He's very speaking person. He is well respected. He did lots of work within the Shia community in Iran. He has held many posts. In fact, he was not even interested. But see, when you kill the father and that sense get into your heart, I think he will be more harder than anybody, and even the RGs in the Iranian Republic Guard, that they can be better than him. They wanted somebody who is good. I think they choose the right person, especially after the sad demise of his father. So I think that gives him more ammunition to continue with the policy of saving Iran from this savage of this war.
Iran's internet blackout has entered a 10th day as well. What have your sources told you about the situation on the ground?
Well, quite bad. In fact, we got calls from relatives there. They're sleeping in the bathrooms. The civilian area has been targeted. The people are dying. Neighbors' story narrative from crying families that the house is falling on their head because the bomb was somewhere else, but because of the pressure, elderly people are unable to move out of the house. And all this tragedy of this war is daily. We are unable to connect on a daily basis. By the way, just twice or thrice, we were able to get some messages from those who could break the networking. And we noticed that the amount of fear and scary of what's this war is happening on them, all these bombs falling on their head, they don't know from where it's coming, all this shaking of the ground. Yet, I can assure you, none of the Iranian is in favor of removing their country by a foreign power.
Why do you think Russia and China aren't intervening with military support?
I think you should ask the Russian and the Chinese. These are the two countries. If today Tehran, tomorrow Moscow, and then Beijing. And everybody knows the fight will be carried out into Beijing territories sooner or later, because the United States feel that nobody is competing or rival more than the Chinese. So the United States will make sure, even every president in the White House have said it, our enemy is China, and they will continue to this power. So I think if the South-South cooperation is not able to deliver, and if they were able to, with Iran destabilizing the BRICS country, where they are major players, China and Russia, and even in the Shanghai cooperation, and they still do nothing, I think they should have a second thought of who will trust them in the future. We know how we lost Syria. We know how we lost Iraq. We know how we lost Libya. We know how Sudan divided. And who are the major sufferers? It is India, it was China, and it was Russia. And if these countries are in a Security Council, they only serve lip service for America, not to just go for political solution, dialogue, stop this war. It doesn't work like this. I think Beijing understood that this is a game of a survival, even for Beijing, though they are developing their own. But at the end of the day, nobody will fight your war. And I think India, a country, emerging power, superpower coming up, should learn lessons from all the allies, including the United States, including Russia, including China, that nobody will come for your rescue except yourself.
United States President Donald Trump has told the Times of Israel that it will be a mutual decision with Netanyahu regarding when the Iran war ends. Earlier, he had signaled a 4 to 5 week-long war. To speculate a little, how long do you think this will go on for?
He doesn't know where his direction is all over, by the way. I mean, the American knew that he did not have any plan. Even the Pentagon, there are reports that some of the senior CIA agents have been forcibly resigning and leaving in mass because of his policy, because of his thinking of putting boot on the ground and killing all the American Marines that start going back to the number of American Marines coffins go back to United States. United States president will be impeached. He will be imprisoned. He will be hanged if this really Iran win this war. And that is what they have been threatening them. This is the second Vietnam for the United States. I am more worried only in one thing, and I'm saying it now with you, that America may go along with Israel into a dirty tactical and nuclear bomb to end this war on Iran, and they will use it. It's not Iran going to have the nuclear bomb, by the way. It is the tactical and nuclear bomb, which I have been talking for the last 2 years that the United States is planning and Israel is planning. They will do it. Remember when the Golda Meir in the October War 1973, and when the Arab were winning the war, they sent a message to the American president that we are not hesitating of using a nuclear bomb to end this war because Israel's survival is at risk. So now, if this happen and this war drag on for a long time, I think both the criminals wanted by International Criminal Court, Netanyahu, and next will be Trump, and I think both of them, the best way to save this war, both of them should commit suicide.
I'm going to quote what the US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said in one of the recent news conferences. He said, "This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be." What is your reaction to this?
Well, I think you better listen carefully to his terms and his language when he speaks. He is one of those evangelists, fanatics who believe that Jesus Christ has to be born again and rebirth if Iran is destroyed, if Babel of Iraq is destroyed, if Syria, Damascus is destroyed. So greater, growing of the Amalek or Persia is destroyed. So you will have a strong Israel in the region and Jesus Christ will come. That is his divine thinking, and that is what you look at his body and you see how many tattoos he put on himself, you will understand what kind of a leader he is. So I don't buy any word of him. He's just a liar like his president. I mean, somebody who attacked the school and he say we are still investigating, even artificial intelligence giving you the feed and the data, they said it was a school and you attacked it intentionally because, and I am sharing, and if you want to turn this war into a religious war, you are playing a very dangerous game. It is very dangerous in this part of the world. If you think these are Qurban by killing children of Gaza, by killing children of Iran, it's a Qurban for the rebirth of Jesus Christ. Will be one of the person who will preach the rest of the world that even Jesus Christ, even God, does not accept anybody killing on his name.
Apart from the alleged goals of securing Israel and dismantling nuke infra, what do you think is in this war for Donald Trump and the United States?
Well, I think the end game for him is he should find a safe facing formula and end this war, asking the Chinese or the Russian for a ceasefire. In the next 2 weeks, going to be very critical, and he has to come up with a solution. Otherwise, he will face a big problem in the mid-election in November. He cannot drag the American into mid-election. He cannot drag the taxpayer of the United States for this long war or put a boot on the ground. Yes, he might be privatizing the army by supporting secessionist movement in Kurdistan, Mujahidi Khalq forces, which is declared as an unlawful organization, whether the Baluchi in Pakistan or Afghanistan, whether the Azari in Azerbaijan. So if he's trying to play the card for this is divide and rule, I think he's playing too much of dangerous card, and there will be lots of human rights and violation and killing of innocent people because this is not an American war. Again and again, I come back, and he has to realize this. He has to admit it. Otherwise, he has to face the American court, and the American people has to take a call on their own president and his mental health and in this war, which is dragging the whole of America into unnecessarily war, as we can see.
I'm curious, the attacks that have been taking place in the Gulf, when we talk about Saudi Arabia, when we talk about the UAE, do you think that all of this is a strategic mistake by Iran?
No, why strategic mistake? Iran knew it is going to be an extensional war for Iran. Iranian will use more cards in their hand than this. This is only the beginning. They have not even used more sophisticated method of their plan. The people of Iran are preparing since the revolution have came to power. Ever since the American and the Israelis have been after the Iranian Islamic Revolution, there is a message. There is a way the American and the Israelis are promoting. They're promoting Abraham Accord, promoting Abrahism in the Islam. They don't want political Islam. So Iran is considered to be one of the political Islam of the Islamic world. And therefore, removing of them, it's a part of a bigger game. So most of these countries, by the way, are also understanding the game plan. Because, Netanyahu was speaking earlier of a axis of evil, or the Shia axis, where he started saying from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. Then he changed his mind after he started thinking that he won the upper hand in the war. He's speaking now of a Sunni kind of an axis where he wanted to counter. And look at all these countries, the Sunni he wanted to counter. These are the countries who are opposing to his hegemony in the region. Name it, whether it is Saudi Arabia, whether it is Pakistan, whether it's Turkey, whether it's Egypt. So these are the new alliances. He wanted to create an alliances to attack them using the card of minorities in different parts of the world, Muslim minorities, to provoke the local people against them. So immediately create divide and rule and social disharmony all over the world, especially in this South Asian region. So I think the Iranian understood the game plan. The Arab countries are not yet involved in this war directly because they do not want neither to involve direct confrontation with Iran, which had not shown any kind of aggressions before this war, by the way. And the second, they don't want to pay the bill to the United States. I think that American should think seriously after this war ends that they should pull out from the Middle East. Because if you don't protect them, for what you're having the military bases there and extracting all these billions of dollars from the Arab country on the name of the scarecrow Iran that you wanted to remove. And I think it's a business as usual. Tomorrow they remove Iran. Who will be the next devil or demonizing country that they can use so the Arab country keep pouring money in the American treasure?
Do you see NATO entering the war in a full-fledged way soon? Do you think it's just a matter of time?
I don't think they will give it a second thought, even the NATO forces, because they are not happy with the American way of going for this war, though they are giving logistic support, whether it is Britain or even Turkey or even the French or the German. But directly in a confrontation, I don't think so. They will go into that kind of war. And I get the feeling from a couple of Western analysts and officials. They said, well, so far we are not interested in entering, and we are not. But false flags are always there, dragging them into a war where the American running short of ammunitions. Maybe possible that they can be dragged. And, when there are remnants in the mindset of some of the North Bloc, that they are still a colonial power, they may be thinking that colonizing their mind into occupying this part of the world, that they can take part of the share of the oil and energy that the Americans are going to take for themselves. But maybe when they sit on the table, they wanted to share part of the cake with them.
And last but certainly not least, could this be another forever war that the United States has entered into?
I don't think so. This war has to be forever. I think it has to be an end to this war. There are two scenarios here, actually speaking. One, we see if Iran is being removed or disintegrated, then we will have a more chaotic situation, more fundamentalists, more extremists will be born here, because Israel will continue to expand at the cost of the Palestinian in West Bank or in Gaza, or now they are into Syria, into Lebanon. They wanted to occupy a big chunk of the Litani River where the water is there. So I think this will create more chaotic situation in the region. The second scenario, which is more dangerous, is that if a nuclear bomb is used, or a tactical dirty bomb used against Iran, and the amount of civilian got killed because of this madness of this war by United States and Israel, I think we are heading for a more dangerous trends. Could be a third world war, could be anything that the rest of the international community, including China or India or Russia, they will not sit quiet.
Dr. Awwad, thank you so much once again for joining us and providing us with your crucial perspective on what's been taking place.
Thank you very much for having me. And once again, I remind your viewers or your commentators that I am not in the payroll of anybody. So don't expect me that I am speaking on behalf of anybody. I'm speaking of my heart. I'm an advocate of peace. I am an investigative journalist, cover wars from Libya to Jaffna. I have traveled, I've been captured, shot at, and I always say that peace is the best option for settling and living happy in this world.
Thank you for that final word, Dr. Awwad.
Thank you for having me.